The Paper Plane cocktail sits in my Mount Rushmore of greatest cocktails to be invented. At first glance, it looks like it could be a prohibition-era cocktail invented by an expatriate in Paris, but it's actually only about 15 years old. Here's the story of the drink, how to make it, and 2 variations that I've come up with for you to try and hopefully enjoy. The Violet Hour in Chicago first debuted the Paper Plane in 2008, but not by that name. Australian Sam Ross was asked by the Violet Hour's Toby Maloney to work up a new cocktail for the new bar, and Ross, then a bartender at New York's famed Milk and Honey, came up with a take on the 1920s classic The Last Word. The Last Word is an equal parts cocktail of gin, green chartreuse, maraschino liqueur, and lemon juice. So, Sam Ross's new invention was also an equal parts cocktail of bourbon instead of gin, Amaro Nonino instead of chartreuse as its herbal component, and Campari for the fruity aperitif rather than maraschino. Lemon juice remained the lone same ingredient. Ross called Maloney late one night to reveal his creation in a voicemail, and while Maloney got everything right, he got the name wrong and listed the new cocktail as the Paper Airplane. Later, Ross reworked the cocktail with Aperol instead of Campari, which introduced more sweetness to the drink and thereby more balance, and thus the Paper Plane was born. And yes, it was named after the MIA song that flooded our airwaves and our iPod Nanos at the time. Of the ingredients, Amaro Nonino may be the hardest to come by. I have to drive about 15 miles to find the nearest store that carries it, and while it's the certified Amaro of the Paper Plane, something like Montenegro is an easier to find and, from what I understand, decently flavored substitute. The official recipe of the Paper Plane is 1 ounce each of the following: bourbon, Aperol, Amaro Nonino, and lemon juice. The original recipe also calls for an overproof bourbon for extra kick, so look for something like this, Old Grandad 114, or a similarly overproof bourbon. My recommendation is something 100 proof or more. In your mixing tin, combine 1 ounce each of fresh squeezed lemon juice, Amaro Nonino, Aperol, and bourbon. Shake and double strain into a martini glass, Nick and Nora or coupe glass. No fruit or expression on this one, just a tiny Paper Plane for garnish if you so choose. It's fresh, bright, bitter, and sweet. Much like a Sazerac, it's almost the perfectly balanced cocktail. So let's change it. I created 2 variations of the Paper Plane that I think are fun mix-em-ups for when you want something different. We'll stick with equal parts for this first variation, sort of. For the red tail, we'll need 3/4 ounce each of lemon juice and Tart Cherry juice. All cherry juice would be way too tart. And then we'll add 1 ounce each of Suze in place of Amaro Nonino, Campari in place of Aperol, and rye whiskey in place of bourbon. Shake and double strain into your chilled glass, and there it is, the red tail. It's nicely balanced, although it's hard to beat the original. The Tart Cherry mixed with the Suze and the Campari makes for a very herbaceous and aromatic cocktail, and the sweetness of the rye whiskey rounds it out nicely. This version of the Paper Plane, the Bloody Hundredth, isn't altogether different, just in proportions and the addition of one of my favorite seasonal fruits, blood orange. It's one of the few bright spots in winter produce, so let's take advantage of it. You'll need everything from the usual Paper Plane, bourbon, Aperol, Amaro Nonino, and fresh lemon juice. For the cocktail, grab a shaking tin and add 1 ounce of blood orange juice, a 1/2 ounce of lemon, a 1/2 ounce each of Aperol and Amaro Nonino, and 2 ounces of bourbon. Shake and double strain. Express some blood orange peel on top and fold it up and use it as a garnish. I love the aromatic nature of the skin of a blood orange. The addition of the blood orange juice definitely brings a little bit more roundness to the cocktail than the original Paper Plane. It's not quite as acidic and tart, but I think it gives it a fantastic level of richness. And sticking with the aviation theme, the name is homage to the 100th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force during World War II, who, due to the extreme losses within the group, were nicknamed the Bloody Hundredth. My grandfather was a member of the 8th Air Force during World War II, so it holds a special place in my heart. If you haven't tried one of the many Room 101 Farce cigars yet, then hop over to your local spot and grab a couple. Founded by Marine veteran Matt Booth, Room 101 cigars are innovative in their blends and collaborations, and this handmade farce Connecticut has an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper and Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers with a mystery binder. It's a perfectly mid-flavored cigar in terms of strength for a cocktail such as the Paper Plane. There's a really unique woodsy aroma and flavor in the first part of the cigar that I can only describe as pecan wood. It's also incredibly creamy with notes of vanilla and toasted almonds, and it pairs beautifully with the complexity within the Paper Plane. With that, thank you so much for visiting the Cigar Bar, and we'll see you in the next one.